Microsoft just bought Activision, one of the world's largest video game publishers, and I think that news is a lot more frightening.
Yeah. Video game monopolies are not as possible as you might think. Let me explain. No. There's nothing to explain. Microsoft literally owns the Skyrims, the Call of Duties, the Crafts of Mine. They've got it all. And I'm gonna prove to you that video games can be a monopoly, and I'm gonna do it with this. Who do you think I am? Elizabeth Maggie? What? She created Monopoly, okay? Read a book. If I win, you admit that the video game industry is approaching a monopoly, and you give me your Xbox Series X. If somehow you win, then I'll eat that jar of pickles I left out in the sun for the past 2 days. Deal. Let's do this thing. Microsoft is definitely a monopoly, and I cannot wait to play my new Series X. You help your neighbor bring in her groceries. She makes you lunch to say thanks. Collect $20. When did Monopoly get so PG? Your turn. So one of the biggest reasons that video game monopolies can't exist is that the barrier to entry is essentially zero. You see, markets are made up of products. There's supply and demand, and companies who sell those products compete with each other to win. But video games don't really fit that model exactly. Video games are creative products. The value of a video game is kind of subjective. It can fluctuate dramatically depending on how good the idea is, and the best part is that the ideas are completely free. Anyone can come up with one. So then the question that you should be asking yourself is, how difficult is it to create your own game? To build a video game, you obviously need an idea. But you need tools to help with graphics, sound, programming, blah, 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 blah. You get the point, it's no cakewalk. You'd think it'd be incredibly expensive and difficult to use tools like that, but you'd only be half right. Companies like Epic Games and Unity have built tools to help creators build the games they want to make, and for the most part, they only charge money if you make money. But it gets even crazier. There's a huge, vibrant, independent gaming community and plenty of documentation to help even the newest creators build what they want to build, how they want to build it. As long as you have the creative juices flowing and the drive to make your creations come alive, the barrier to entry has never been lower. Nice. Says bank has to pay me $200. Now we're talking. Okay, but you're forgetting that Microsoft can only choose to sell their games on their storefront. So that fits single seller, that's clearly a bad thing, and thus totally makes it a monopoly without question. I'm gonna need your Series X right about now. Kind of, but it doesn't fulfill the single seller factor, and it definitely doesn't make it a monopoly. Let me explain. There are multiple storefronts to sell your game, each with their own incentive and install base. On the PC, there's plenty. We got Steam, Battle.net, Good Old Games, and the red-headed stepchild, the Windows Store. Most of these are walled gardens, meaning once you buy there, the chances of you buying elsewhere shrinks pretty much dramatically. But here's what's so fascinating. History has consistently told us one thing. People seem to actually want a single storefront. They want convenience. For years in the PC space, companies have challenged Steam, the king of the PC storefronts, and each has failed. So why is that? It comes down to convenience. Your library of games lives there, your friends list lives there, and most people don't want to have multiple launchers. Pretty simple, really. The only thing that can move the needle is having exclusive games on your storefront, which is exactly how Battle.net works. But the problem is those exclusive games have to be so good to be able to compete against storefronts like Steam, which have every PC game that you can imagine. You're forgetting about Price Maker, all right? Microsoft can lose a huge amount of losses to be able to do anything that they want. Competitors just won't be able to lose $200? Dude, so I want to be clear, you're not wrong, you're actually 100% right. Services like Game Pass and the console itself are perfect examples of this. It's nearly impossible for competitors that aren't already trillion-dollar companies to compete on pricing, but you're forgetting one important thing, which is consoles and services aren't video games. They surround it for sure, but nothing stops someone from releasing the next big hit elsewhere. It comes back down to video games aren't just a product, they're art. People will go to the art that makes them feel the best because it's the only place that exists, and that's what makes video games so incredibly special. At any point, someone can develop the next Wordle or Minecraft or PUBG or Fall Guys, Beat Saber, or any of these fabulous ideas that have turned into a multi-million-dollar products. It's because the idea was special and the people connected with that product. So it doesn't really matter who owns it or will eventually own it, because at the end of the day, there will always be new ideas from amazing creatives just waiting for their chance to be heard. Woo! Duck, it is not looking good for you, my man. Video games come at a variety of prices and nothing stops others from doing the same, but the point is, if a game seems incredibly special, they can kind of name the price different from what a competitor is offering. I mean, didn't you pay the new premium PS5 price for the new Ratchet & Clank? I mean, technically, but I mean, it looked awesome. Friggin' right it did, and maybe replaying the game will make you feel better after eating that jar of pickles. Because this last one feels like a freebie. Let's talk economies at scale. When we step back and look at games, of course there's manufacturing that goes into making the disc, the box, and the manuals to anyone who still makes those. Yeah, I actually sort of miss those things. I know, right? I used to love going through those things before I played the game. But when we look back, there's a volume of materials that could be scaled for sure, but these days, everything's kind of digital. The main cost is manpower, marketing, and tooling, but if anyone can build a game and sell it on any store, there's not that many materials they really need to scale. I said it once and I'll say it again. In a creative industry such as video games, a monopoly doesn't matter. Okay, hold on. Keep it cute for 1 second. Microsoft has bought what feels like half the video game companies last year.
It looks like Microsoft is going to be buying Activision Blizzard.
And you're somehow gonna tell me that it's not a monopoly? If the company that now owns half the biggest video game companies in the world isn't a monopoly, then what is? It's a great question. So let's think about what a fully fledged video game monopoly would be and then just work our way back. So to be a pure monopoly, there must be some sort of mega company who owns everything in video games. They own Microsoft Game Studios, they own PlayStation games, they own Nintendo, EA, everyone. They are a true monopoly and they can set the price because they own it all. But what happens when their developers leave? What happens when those people have an idea and build that idea to create something like Wordle, something like Minecraft, or something like Slay the Spire? What happens if they aren't able to keep the same level of quality of the games they purchased? And here's the thing, these questions give us two very important answers, which would be... First is that if video game monopolies did exist, they could be easily disrupted, so it's not that much of a threat, because creative folks don't really care that much about money. They care about creating amazing experiences, and they'll never stop until they've built what's in their head. And second, you're gonna be eating that jar of pickles, buddy. Video games are special, and it's completely normal to be afraid that they might be locked behind some corporate paywall or zapped of any of the creativity that made some of your favorite video games so memorable. It's ideas and creators that make video games, and no amount of monopoly can end that because we live in one of the most open platforms that the world has ever known. We live in the digital age where a fan is essentially a download away from experiencing what could be their favorite game of all time. But we still haven't answered the most important question that we should be asking ourselves. If creativity trumps all, then what's Microsoft's master plan? And is Sony in a pickle? Please, do tell. Well, it turns out that Microsoft's strategy is going to be changing a lot more than you or I could ever have imagined. And it's going to make owning a PlayStation 5 completely